What's up? What's up? What is up? It's another Friday. Not just another Friday. I think they call this Good Friday.
Uh-oh.
For all of you who celebrate, I hope that your celebrations are well planned and it's going to be involving a lot of family and a lot of love and faith and all of those good things. So happy Good Friday. But for us on Friday, you know what it is. The crew gets in the building. We get together across the country. And we put together what is the experience known as the Ball Hawk Sports Talk. That's where sports, business, and entertainment collide. And they absolutely collide when three handsome, intelligent businessmen get together and discuss sports in an entertaining fashion. That is the Ball Hawk Sports Talk. So, with no further ado, today's episode is going by the title of Ladies First. Ladies First, you know what it is. We'll get more into that. But for anybody that's in a relationship, you know what they say, happy wife, happy life. For anyone that's grown up with sisters, I had to let my sisters do certain things first. They taught me how to open the door and things of that nature, and they let me know chivalry is not dead, although it might be on life support. But rarely have we seen in sports ladies taking the first position. So this week in Sports Business Entertainment, the ladies will be first. Stay tuned. This will be an exciting episode of Ladies First, Ball Hawk Sports Talk. We'll introduce the crew when we come back. Make sure that you pull up a seat, get you a cup of coffee, because the Ball Hawk Sports Talk is coming to you. Let's go.
Wake up, wake up, wake up, and stay woke, because this is the Ball Hawk Sports Talk with your boy, B. Brown, ESQ. A.K.A. the Ball Hog, A.K.A. the Mouth of the South. This is the place where sports, business, and entertainment collide. And we're going to give it to you rough, rugged, and raw, so come get you a spoonful, like some grits with butter and salt. You know how we do it in the South, y'all. Make sure you do not get caught in your feelings. Strap on your seatbelt and enjoy the ride. Come on, let's go.
You know what it is. The Ball Hawk Sports Talk in the building. The whole crew is here. We got from the Middle Coast, thou shall be known, intergalactically respected as. You know what I mean? Put your chest out when you say this man's name. Straight from the Windy City. Hopefully it ain't windy no more. We got
down there summer over here. We down there summer.
Oh, y'all good.
As I zip up my sweatshirt. But what's good, America? What's good, man? Happy Friday. Good Friday to everybody. Hope the Easter plans are good. Most importantly, get together with the family and see each other. That's what I'm looking forward to most. I think I was told to make chicken wings, which isn't really an Easter thing, but you know, sometimes you just gotta do what you gotta do.
You gotta do what you gotta do. I like that. And doing what we got to do, we got to get this Ball Hawk Sports Talk stuff in today. But before we do, we got to introduce from the East Coast, he who shall be respected as Beantown's finest. You know what I mean? You remember them Boston baked beans? They ain't got nothing on this man. He is ETP, Ellis the producer. What's up, my man?
It's Good Friday, feeling good. Good to see y'all. Ready to go.
Good to be seen, brother. Good to be seen. I don't know if y'all have any outstanding plans for a Good Friday. But hopefully you will be surrounded by loved ones. Let's hop in, man, because today's episode is going by the title of Ladies First. And it's going by the title of Ladies First because this week in sports, business, and entertainment, when the collision occurs between sports, business, and entertainment this week, while everybody getting ready to celebrate Easter this week, we have things like the Masters being back. Tiger, I heard he's struggling, but he out there. Applause for Tiger. Tiger is there. We got the NBA playoff picture coming around the final turn to see who's doing what. People getting walked down. Some people catching cramps. Some people speeding up. But we're going to know what's happening with basketball soon. We got the WWE and the UFC merging. Huge business. We've got NFL draft stuff coming up and the positioning and all that. And yet, the thing that has taken center stage, the topic that has been discussed in every barbershop, which is our litmus test for what real sports is about, the topic that has trended over and over again on social media, the conversation that has been had on every network related to sports, including the one that we all talk about, every show, every radio show on sports radio is talking about women's basketball.
Yes, sir.
Ladies are first. Now, here at the Ball Hawk Sports Talk, we've been celebrating and salivating over women's basketball forever. I told y'all, to me, it's the best thing going. I like my sons to watch it. It's fundamental basketball. It's good stuff. Now, I ain't going to say who, but some people suggested that the WNBA reformat. We ain't going to get into that. But we have respected.
You mean the one that said to lower the rims?
I said lower the rims.
Is that what you were talking about?
I said lower the rims. I did say that. But
okay. Got it.
That's not as bad as 3-on-3. You're going to turn it into Ice Cube's joint.
Oh, let's lower the rim. Let's give them training wheels too. Let's do that.
Fair. We both are wrong because
I disagree that I was wrong.
Let's play with
about
the
it from a business standpoint, but you're talking about that they're not physically capable to play regulation basketball. I get it.
I'm not today. I can't say anything negative about the ladies because in its traditional format, 5-on-5 with 10 feet baskets, the ladies they're center stage, man. What a beautiful game. A wonderful Final Four. We got to see David beat Goliath with Iowa taking down South Carolina. We thought the aftermath of that game, at least I did, was going to be where all the fireworks were. When Don Staley said, hey, we ain't no thugs. We ain't no bar fighters. We ain't no monkeys. I'm like, oh, well, where is that coming from? I thought that would be the highlight and the climax of a fireworks, and yet move over. The championship game happens. Iowa loses to LSU, and some people call it the John Cena. I think that's the Flavor Flav. But that gesture has now led to a whole different laundry list of conversations related to women's basketball. It's led to a whole different laundry list of conversations related to, let's be honest, the race implications of the conversation. A laundry list of conversations related to whether or not white America and the optics of Iowa taking on and beating South Carolina, taking on and losing to LSU, but noticeably different rosters when it comes to the demographics. Is that what led to this historic moment? Let's start with just the basketball part of it, because I found out today that my man Big Flo Show is a Caitlin Clark fan. And I want to give you the space at ETP. We all are. Let me stop and say, when it comes to basketball, the girl's bad. What did you guys think about the game? Did you watch? Were you one of the TVs that was tuned in? Because there were several TVs tuned in. We're going to talk about the business part of it. Let's get into the basketball part first. What did you guys think about the championship game? I'll start with you on this Big Flo Show since you're an hour behind. Go ahead.
Since it's earlier over here. Hey, at the end of the day, let me start off this conversation because this may go in a lot of directions. I think Caitlin Clark is a generational basketball player. She's fun to watch. I like Caitlin Clark. I think she plays the game well. I like her bravado. I think I have nothing bad to say about Caitlin Clark. And that's done. As far as being a fan of hers, I've been hearing about this girl that can shoot from Steph Curry range for a while. Yeah, and that never really got me to tune in. And I don't know which game I caught. One of the games I think I caught where somebody in the handshake line and her had some beef. Wasn't that her? Where they had a little beef and somebody said something to her in the line. And then I picked up a game kind of like, oh, it was on. Oh, all right, well, let me check this game out. And I saw her balling. And I'm like, wow. So then I wanted to watch the South Carolina game. Everything was talking about it and leading into it. So, I mean, she's as advertised, right? She's as advertised. Everything that they say she can do. The thing I liked about her game the most is it just didn't seem forced. There's so many times when you see a men's star and you feel like, all right, everyone's giving the ball to Kobe and Kobe's going to score and just do whatever. And it didn't seem as totally natural. I feel like she shot the ball when she should shoot it. She drove when she should drive, and she passed when she should pass. And if you weren't paying attention, because she's not like super tall or like she doesn't have any physical features that like make you just jump off the screen and you don't know her. If you watch the game, you don't realize that Iowa's team isn't super talented because she makes the team seem super talented. She gives it to people and they hit their shots. I don't know. I can't say enough about it. So I'm a big fan. I'll let E chime in. We've got more to go.
ETP, you saw the game. You watched it. You were one of those TVs. What did you think about the game itself? And as we ask every week, before I let you answer, sorry about that, ATP. Please like, comment, share, tag a friend, tag a foe, tag anybody that you know. Please subscribe to both the YouTube channel and the podcast. I see people coming in with some comments. And my man Nick says that Caitlin is a bucket. The emoji works there. She is a bucket.
Oh, is that what it was?
Who Jordan is in? You know he's LSU down to the socks. What did you think about the game, ETP?
I thought for both the Final Four and the championship game with Iowa versus South Carolina, and then Iowa versus LSU, I thought great basketball. Two of the most poorly officiated games that I've seen in a long time. Referees kind of dictated the outcome in a lot of ways of both. Got Aaliyah Boston into foul trouble and basically changed the whole momentum of the game in the Final Four with Iowa and South Carolina. So Iowa could go on a run, and it was pretty obvious. And then ironically, I think in the final game, they ended up changing the momentum and giving technical, a faulty technical or faulty technical to Caitlin Clark, and just the way that they were officiating that game, I think it just threw it off. So as great a basketball it was, as dominant as Caitlin Clark was, as great as LSU is just a really super deep team. I mean, they exploited the transfer portal in the best way possible and all of the talent that they brought over there. So for Kim Mulkey to win a national championship in her second year, the talent was crazy. What was it? Carson, who was a senior, hadn't played. I think she scored like 5 points in the whole tournament, scored 21 in the first half.
Yep.
Ton of threes, buckets. It was exciting. I just didn't like the way that the officiating had so much of an influence on both of those games, which were box office. I mean, Caitlin Clark coming off a 40-point triple-double, unheard of in both men's and women's college basketball ever. And then going into the South Carolina game, I thought the refs got in the way, and then definitely got in the way again in the finals. But quality basketball, a lot of talent on both sides of the ball. Excellent.
I agree, man. Quality basketball. And so I'll say, just not to pat ourselves on the back, but just to be honest, we have celebrated when it came to women's basketball. We've celebrated some of the greatest achievements that we've seen over the last several years as we've done the show. We've also celebrated the increased quality. What we think over the years has been an increased quality of the game. And is Caitlin Clark, let's start there. Is Caitlin Clark the best women's college basketball player you've ever seen?
Yes. Hands down. Or not, I don't know. I'm not even going to say best. She's the most exciting women's college basketball player I've ever watched. Just the fact that she can do everything offensively. She's fast. I mean, she's just all over the court, and she's fireworks. Where there's been a lot of dominant players in the past. Obviously Cheryl Miller scored 100 points in high school. You've got a ton of UConn, alumni. You've got Brittney Griner. You've got even your fellow alum, what's her name?
Skylar Diggins,
but also Skylar Diggins. I mean, you got a ton of talent. Medea Dixon, but from what I've ever seen from watching women's college basketball, she's the most exciting individual player I've ever watched.
Big Flow Show, your vote. Is Caitlin Clark the best women's college basketball player that you have ever seen? And please, in our audience, you know how we do it. We want the Ball Hog Sports Talk audience to chime in too. You answer the question as well. My question is to them and everyone. Is Caitlin Clark the best women's college basketball player that you have seen?
The reason I'm going to say yes is the girls' basketball game has come so far. I mean, since my day, where it was not as exciting. It was not as skilled. I mean, they've always been fundamentally sound, but the athleticism wasn't there as much. So in the era that she's at now, where basketball has come a long way, for her not to be 6'8", for her not to be some sort of physical dominant craziness, she's, I don't know how tall she's 6 feet.
6 feet.
It's wild because they rarely talk about height in women's basketball.
So she's not. She doesn't have any specific like there was the one girl from UConn that had those like crazy long arms. I don't know what her name is. She doesn't have anything that gives her this like unbelievable advantage over women. She can shoot the ball. She's got vision. She goes left or right. She doesn't need to cross you up because she's too fast for you to stay in front of her. She finishes well. I have to say, statistically, what I'm saying at this point, yeah, I had to say she's the best that I've seen.
All right. Go on my bad.
40 points, 30 points, and you know she's coming. I can't really argue.
While I respect you, gentlemen, and while today's episode, ladies first, during a week where the ladies just dominated viewership, they dominated all of our attention, they dominated the conversation, I think that's recency bias. I love Caitlin Clark. I love her game. I like the fact that she's extended it so far. I do agree, like 75% of every basket in a game, she either scored or assisted on. 100%
against the best undefeated team.
The best team, the most dominant team in college basketball since the at least 6 years ago UConn team. Right? So impressive. 100% she either scored or assisted on in the fourth quarter. Impressive. I still can't say, man. For me, Brittney Griner, watching her, Diana Taurasi, watching her. I did see Candace Parker in her prime. Now, look, Cheryl Miller was who she is, but I don't really remember that. But we've seen some in our time. And Diana Taurasi comes to mind because she could do everything that Caitlin Clark could do, but also get to the basket. And while 75% of all baskets either scored on,
stop. Before you finish that, you don't think Caitlin Clark can get to the basket?
No, finish your point. Finish your point.
I said better than. I didn't say that Caitlin Clark can't get to the basket.
You said and can get to the basket, but we're not. I digress. I'll let you talk.
Can get to the basket better than Caitlin Clark. This is a comparison. All right. Diana Taurasi to me is a lot more of a complete player. But I'll say this, that Caitlin Clark, 75% of all baskets either scored or assisted upon against South Carolina, great stat. 100% in the fourth quarter, great stat. But it also says that Caitlin Clark's on the floor with players that aren't as good as Diana Taurasi's on the floor with. Diana Taurasi's on the floor with McDonald's All-American, which Americans, plural, which leads to more point distribution, which leads to more leaning on other players. But pound for pound, I'm taking a Diana Taurasi. I'm taking Brittney Griner. I'm taking Sue Bird. I think that in her amazing run, she does get on that list over a Skylar Diggins for me. She does eclipse a person like Arike to me. But there are some greats in women's basketball that I just think that even in Caitlin Clark's run, while it was sizzling, exciting, amazing, it drew a whole bunch of eyes into the television. To me, I just think that it doesn't knock those other names off the list for me.
So you're saying being on a great team is a disadvantage to being the main player on a team where everybody knows you're coming and you have to facilitate everything. On top of Caitlin Clark averages 27, not just 27 points, 7 rebounds, 8 assists. Diana Taurasi, if we're talking about Diana Taurasi, 16 points, 4.5 rebounds, I think about 4 or 5 assists. If we're saying that, the advantage to Taurasi is, she's on a better team, so she could facilitate and pass and have more assists. I mean, Caitlin Clark is basically, everybody calls her Curry. She's basically Larry Bird. Like, she's as Larry Bird as you can get. She's a killer. She's a shit talker. She's tall enough. Like, she's front court for the most part, but she plays like a guard. And the idea that you're using the fact that she's not on a great team as a disadvantage to the argument is just, it's illogical to me.
It seems silly to
not
me.
that it's a disadvantage. What I'm saying is I'm comparing two players. And what you both alluded to in that comparison were the stats. And I'm saying that the stats in this case can be misleading because they're relying a lot more on Caitlin Clark, given the fact that she's on the floor with people that are not perennial McDonald All-Americans. And that 75/100% of her contributions in the South Carolina game, 75% in the total game, 100% in the fourth quarter, to me supports that theory. I'm not penalizing her for that. I'm just saying
you are because she's the target, right? Like if you're on a great team, it's like KD going to the Warriors, right? KD was able to
why you stealing my stuff? You know that was my argument.
So ultimately, so ultimately, like you knew she was coming and she still came and she still did damage. Like that's different than being on a team where you have a threat where they can't sag back, they can't double team you, they can't focus on you defensively. She was the only one, and she showed up and she delivered. Like
her big was good too before she got into foul trouble.
Which one is it? She has help or she doesn't have help? Which one is it?
Say that again.
I said, which one is it? She didn't have any help or she had help? I'm saying this.
I didn't say she didn't have any help. What I said was, my exact words were, it was 75 or 100% of contributions either she scored or assisted on. So assists by definition means she has help. Someone has to finish the shot. I'm saying that UConn in those years just had the McDonald's All-Americans on the court, and it was a lot less. They had to rely a lot less on Diana Taurasi to win games. So
I guess my argument with there is
more impressive what Caitlin Clark did. I would say that it just changes the stats. Yet my basketball eye doesn't lie to me. Diana Taurasi will wipe the floor. A prime Diana Taurasi will wipe the floor to Caitlin Clark. I'm sorry. That's just what happened.
Based on what?
Based on my eye test. Based on knowing basketball, seeing how strong she was, how aggressive she was getting to the basket, seeing how she defended guards. Caitlin Clark and Diana Taurasi in my hypothetical world would be facing one another. And people say you are what you can defend. If you are the best guard on the court, you got to be able to defend the best guard on the court. Caitlin Clark wouldn't have a chance against Diana Taurasi defensively, whereas Diana Taurasi would do wonders in defending Caitlin Clark. That's just my opinion. That's all this is an opinion.
Yeah, I have a hard time with the premise of the argument is like, there's so many people out there, it's hard for her because, I guess if you have that much talent on the court, nobody can focus on you, so you should be able to go to work. You should definitely have more than 4 assists a game, right? If you're there and there's that many people to assist to, if you're playing the guard position, I think that Caitlin Clark went all the way through. She gets to the championship game, arguably could have won the game, could have won either way. Played against one of the most dominant teams that we're not talking about. She basically went through and beat the Golden State, the 73-10 Golden State team by herself, as you're saying, knowing she's the focal point, knowing they could double her, knowing that no one's name on that team was mentioned in the meeting except for hers, and she's still dropping 40 points. Comes back and hits you again.
She's amazing.
So that's my thing.
And please don't let what we are saying, this comparison, make you believe that I'm not a Caitlin Clark fan. No, I'm a complete Caitlin Clark fan. I'm just comparing.
But she gets the floor wiped with her by Diana Taurasi.
Defensively, I said defensively, she would get killed. She would get murdered. And if you need any evidence to support that, just look at the last 20 years of the WNBA and all the great.
But that's what I'm saying. Killed. You're talking like you're taking a career, a 25-year career, and looking at that in comparison to 3 years in college. Like we're talking college, the best college player that I'm looking at it from college. Like I'm not saying no, Caitlin Clark is not the greatest women's basketball player that's ever lived. She's only been playing in our eyes for 3 years.
You mean college, right? That was the initial question.
I know. Why I'm making a 20-year career, like that's not relevant to the comparison.
Well, it is because you asked me to explain wiping the floor with her, and I said if you need any evidence of that whatsoever, pick the best guard that you can imagine in college basketball, women's college basketball, that has been in the WNBA over the last several years, and we can go watch the film what Diana Taurasi did with her. Diana Taurasi was, and I hate to say this because it's about ladies first in this episode, but Diana Taurasi she'd gotten that moniker. Like, she out there playing like a dude. Now, I know women don't like that. They got to be compared to a dude when talking about basketball, but people said that because it's just how she could get to the basket against anyone. That's no disrespect against Caitlin Clark. I'm just using that as the litmus test of why I think that Diana Taurasi is a better player, pound for pound. That's it. I'll give you final word on the Big Flow show, and then we got to compare.
I think at the end of the day, the fact that we're seeing her in this conversation with the people like Diana Taurasi and Sue,
shout out to her, absolutely,
is regardless if you're 1, 2, or 3, you're on the for college basketball, you're on the Mount Rushmore, so to speak. Whatever, I don't like saying that much, but whatever. She's a baller. I don't watch as much college women's basketball or any women's basketball as much as you do. But she's a baller. I looked in and I expected her to be overrated. I expected to be like, oh yeah, okay, but nope. She was taking people off the dribble and she couldn't be stopped. She was just, even when she was off, she scored 40. Her jumper wasn't falling and she gave me 40.
No, when she was off, I think she went 31. Yeah. That's an off night. That's impressive. That's impressive. I ain't taking nothing from that sister, man, because she did her thing. But you mentioned a few things there, and I think it's going to open us up to another conversation, and we might as well get to that other conversation. Let's do it this way first, because we talked about the all-time greatest in terms of players, and please continue to chime in. Those who are watching live, the question presented was, is Caitlin Clark the best college basketball player of all time, women's college basketball player of all time? So please weigh in on that. Now let's turn it to the coaches. Because you had Kim Mulkey take now her second team to win a national title. Where does this rank her? Kim Mulkey, all-time list, women's college basketball all-time list. I think we all can agree that Gino Auriemma is number 1. I think we all can agree that Pat Summitt is number 2. And then the list starts to be a little more interesting. I would say Tara Vanderveer is number 3. And I'm hard-pressed now not to put Kim Mulkey at 4. So we got to see on one side Iowa, arguably, no matter who you are, you would put Caitlin Clark top 5 all-time women's college basketball players. I'll say that. And now you got on the other side, being coached by LSU, Kim Mulkey, who I think is top 5 women's college coaches of all time. I'll start with you on this one, ETP. Now, there's some other arguable names. Muffet McGraw's not on there. You got Vivian Stringer. You've got Dawn Staley, who ultimately is going to be number 1 if she continues down this path. Where would you put Kim Mulkey in the all-time greatest coaches list? This ladies' first episode, and I think while Gino Auriemma, a man, might lead that list, I think it's worth having the conversation. Where does Kim Mulkey sit on that list? ETP, what say you?
I think I'd have to put her at 3. Vanderveer definitely long career, but I think just in terms of success, I'm gonna have to go with Mulkey. And this one was interesting, right? Because she did it with one of the most dominant players, arguably the most dominant player that ever played at Baylor, in Brittney Griner. But then she also did it in this like transfer portal era where she brought a team together within 2 years and won a national championship. I just think the asterisk of it, or the footnote of it, is that she adapted to the current reality and was able to, she made this controversial move to go back to her home state of Louisiana. She was getting all this backlash about that, but she built up the program and brought a national championship very quickly in the era of the unpredictable transfer portal, which makes college basketball more volatile than the pros at this point. So I think I would have to probably put her at 3. Like, she was a perennial successful coach, but just the ability to adapt to the changing and dynamics and get a championship, I think puts her firmly in the 3 spot.
And I might be a little biased towards Tara Vanderveer because she has had staying power. And the older I get, I just like to see older people stay in there. So I might be biased. Big Flo Show, where do you put her on the list?
You know, I had to put a little bit more research to argue whether the 3-4. The thing I'd say I like about this championship, obviously, for her to have been in the coaching game for a little while, and for her to adapt to this transfer portal like she has, she does have great players on this team, but she doesn't have that, like, she doesn't have that Brittney Griner. She doesn't have that, and I'm going to mess up some of the names UConn has had, where they've had these players that were just so unstoppable because of they're so tall or their arms are so long, or it's like, all right, it's almost an unfair advantage. Watching South Carolina, the girl in the middle, 6'7". You know what I mean? They give it herself. It's like just things that women can't compete with.
Right.
I mean, I don't know how many people on the LSU, the Angel, she's what, 6'3"? I mean,
Angel Reese is 6'3". Yeah,
not a ridiculously height person. She's not playing with anybody who's going to be WNBA Hall of Fame from what you're showing. I think they're good basketball players. She came in there with this team. She went against a squad that just took down the Giant. She looked at the game plan, saw that they're going to try to give you the open shot. She came in there. They were hot making their shots. I just feel like she came and she coached them into a championship, and I got to give her credit for that. I give a lot of props to people who can do it in another place. A lot of people get in a situation where they figure it out. But when you can adapt I don't talk about age again, but an older coach, when you can adapt to a new environment and you can win this quickly, that gives me a lot, because everybody else, hey, you became, Gino's untouchable in UConn. He can do whatever the hell he wants to do. He's got it there. Muffet was at Notre Dame. She, we can't do whatever you want at Notre Dame, but, she kind of built her system and really got a chance to do it. She just plopped in here 2 years later. Boom, let's go. I got this.
Yeah, that's the Gino part. Gino being number one, because just the numbers, also comes with this whole, similar to the conversation we had with Caitlin Clark versus Diana Taurasi, but Gino's had the baddest dogs in the dog fight.
Bama.
He's Bama, right? He's Nick Saban. He's won the recruiting war for so long, right? Because whether I put Diana Taurasi or Sue Bird up there on the top list, best players ever, wherever they rank. I ain't even talking about Maya Moore, right? You got Stewie. I mean, UConn's had just an unlimited list of talent. But I still think I got to put him there. The Tara Vanderveer thing is just, I like her staying power. She's almost 70 years old.
You just like saying Vanderveer.
And I like saying Vanderveer. I practice it in the mirror.
Kim
Mulkey 5 times.
Kim Mulkey's winning percentage is lower than only one coach, Gino Auriemma.
Which says something. But here's where I open this Pandora's box to really say this. Kim Mulkey had an opportunity to stand up for, support, advocate on behalf of Brittney Griner, and was deathly silent on it. When asked by a reporter, did she have a statement? Well, I haven't got a statement from her. She said, and you won't. It has been noted that their relationship went south when Brittney Griner wanted to come out the closet. And yeah, it was a few years ago, but not that long ago. It has been rumored that Kim Mulkey discouraged that. And so my issue with Kim Mulkey is just, does she get a pass? Because it seems as though the LGBTQA+ community would have taken her to task for it, and I haven't seen it. It seemed as though, and for those of you who have not been a part of the Ball Hog Sports Talk journey, we were really in the trenches when it came to Brittney Griner, and we were really highlighting those who were speaking up for her, those who weren't. We were really curious about these affinity groups not saying anything on behalf of Brittney Griner, and so I bring it back to Kim Mulkey. Now, besides all the Cajun raging, when she's talking about we like Mardi Gras, a lot of that had a bunch of Coach O and and Brian Kelly
Don't do it.
vibes to
Don't
it.
call it Brian Kelly.
It just was it. I can put that aside. When it comes to whether or not Brittney Griner and Kim Mulkey's relationship is a reflection of something that Kim Mulkey did or did not do while both on campus and supporting her player to be who she wanted to be and to come out the closet and speak publicly about her lesbian lifestyle, or during the Russia situation when a coach, all you had, like, I got issue with Kim Mulkey. I do. And I was trying to get over it. I can get over the Southern drawl. I can get over the fancy Mardi Gras outfit. I can't get over hypocrisy. Because Brittney Griner, to me, and I said this, that to me, Brittney Griner is number one, actually. Even before Diana Taurasi, I think Brittney Griner was the most dominant women's college basketball player. Baylor cashed in a king's ransom. Kim Mulkey then doubled down, took advantage of the program that she built, but took advantage of that to get even more money for LSU. And so for her to be, in my opinion, the source of some of this confusion as it relates to Brittney Griner, I got an issue with that. I'll start with you on the Big Flow show. And I know I'm putting you on the spot, but I kind of got an issue with Kim Mulkey. The more I looked into her relationship with Brittney Griner and sort of read what was going on and how it played out, I started having more issue with it because to me, it harkens back to a day pre-NIL, pre-transfer portal, when all the power and leverage was in the hands of the coaches and the institutions. And a lot of players got taken advantage of. And I'm struggling not to feel that way about Kim Mulkey. Make me feel different if you so choose.
I don't know that I can make you feel different. I guess the hard part I have is you never know why people go south, right? We always hear about beefs, right? Public beefs. And you don't know what type of things Brittney Griner could have said to her. You don't know how deep it could have gotten. You don't know where it was at the end of the day. If me and you hate each other and we don't choose to talk about it, if other people might speculate that we hate each other because we didn't get along because of this podcast, but deep down we hate each other because of something else, and both of us are being big enough not to put our dirt in the street. But there's some certain things you could do where I'm just not going to speak up. Now, optically, she could get up there and say, hey, free Brittney Griner, woo, whatever. But deep down inside, man, if you guys have fallen all the way out and you hate each other on some other stuff, you never know what it is. She could have called her everything but a child of God. You never know what it was. So without me knowing that, to pass judgment on what you should do with somebody, because you guys, obviously they've fallen out for what you should have done and should have done, she won't get her free. So everything you're talking about is just optics anyway. To come forward and say, free Brittney Griner, I don't think Putin really cares.
Without saying anything, didn't she say something? Right, this was your college athlete that you won a national championship. You guys were locked at the hip during that run when, and we're going to look at some of the viewership ratings, but Baylor was a draw. People were watching it. By deciding not to say something, aren't you really saying something? That's my issue with Kim Mulkey. Like, it's almost more.
Maybe Brittney smacked her one time. You don't know what happened. Maybe she smacked her. You don't know, like, I don't like you, man. Like, optically, she could have easily said something just to be saying something, but it was deeper than that. And I doubt it's because she's mad that she came out. It's hard for me to believe, because you don't think there's some lesbians on the team? So I don't think that Kim Mulkey didn't speak out against her because she's a lesbian. So
I was baffled that I hadn't heard more about that, because the LGBTQ community, I feel as though, rightfully so, go hard for their own. They stand up for their people. They advocate. And they make sure that that community is a protected community, and that anything that they feel is out of bounds, they put a spotlight on it.
This is my first hearing about it right now, and we had pregame, and I didn't hear about it. So
a coach discouraging you from coming out the closet is like, you know.
I mean, I think that's probably. I don't know. I mean, none of us will ever know. Maybe we will when they do a documentary. But I think, to your point about Brittney Griner coming out and essentially divulging that information, which should have been a private conversation, potentially, kind of created that backlash where Kim Mulkey, wasn't too excited about talking about Brittney Griner, and that maybe that created the rift, and on top of whatever challenges that they had when they were working together. So I don't know. I mean, at this point, they've both gone on to see great success. So
they have, but look, and Kim Mulkey's got a lot more success ahead of her. I pray that Brittney Griner's got a lot more success ahead of her. It just struck me as odd. So that's my only thing with Kim Mulkey. God bless her in her Southern drawl. God bless her in her exciting and crazy outfits. Lord knows when it comes to fashion choices, I ain't the one to judge nobody because I go out on a limb too. But the more I was digging, the more I was like, wait a minute, I don't know if I really like this Kim Mulkey person. But I have to acknowledge and respect the fact that she has built yet another program at LSU. Not one, not two, not three, not four, not five, not six, not seven, not eight, but 9. 9 transplants. I don't think they're all transfers. But yeah, I think it might have been all transfers. 9 new members of that team. An overhaul, complete redo. No one can say it was because of recruiting. No one can say, this is solely her prize to brag about. But I just had issues when I was reading more about it. Especially when you think of things like the post-game interview. We had, or the post-game backlash. For those who have been living under a rock, for those of the few of you who didn't watch the game because everybody else did, for those of you who weren't on social media, LSU was playing Iowa in the championship, and it is now obvious that LSU is going to win the championship. Angel Reese, who goes by the Bayou Barbie, I think is the nickname, does this gesture, like you can't see me. Some call it John Cena. Again, I'm showing my age. I call it the Flavor Flav. And then basically points to the ring as in ring me. You would have thought that Angel Reese tripped her while she was walking away, kicked her in the back, stole her money, stole her boyfriend, and got her with one of those fake email chains. If you send me $200 right now, we can. You'd have thought she did all of that based on how social media reacted. And then it was disclosed that Caitlin Clark, indeed, earlier in the March Madness run, had done the same gesture on someone else and had a run-in with Angel Reese when they were in Maryland. So when you saw the layers, it became even more crazy that was the response. On the heels of Dawn Staley and her post-game interview saying, we are not thugs, we're not monkeys, we're not bar fighters. I hear what you're saying. So I say all that to say this. And we have the numbers and we'll show them. Viewership was crazy for this game. So crazy, the women's final peaked at 12.6 million viewers. As you'll see in this illustration, it's by far 9.9 million is the average. It's by far the highest rated viewership of a championship game. If you compare it to NBA from this year, this game it exceeded every game of last year's NBA playoffs except the NBA Finals. Game 7 of the Celtics Heat Eastern Conference Final also averaged 9.9 million, so they were tied. But we're talking about NBA playoffs. That's why today's episode is ladies first. And while I love these numbers as enthusiasts and supporters of women's college basketball, as Ball Hog Sports Talk has been upfront talking about just how good the quality of women's college basketball is these days. So I love the numbers. I love the business behind it. I love the NIL that's probably going to be associated with it. I love the leverage that this now provides for women's sports, especially college basketball on college campuses. I am left to ask why. This is higher than we had when we were stuck at home in a pandemic. And the question I have to ask is why? And because of some of these interviews, because of some of these conversations, because of the America that I've lived in, I can't help but to think the answer to that why is that we had white versus black. We had this young, amazing white player taking on not one but two predominantly black teams. And in this white America, and as you saw through social media trends, everyone wanted to watch that. And then we get to the Angel Reese conversation. Then we get to the South Carolina conversation. Then we think of Don Imus way back calling Vivian Stringer's Rutgers team nappy-headed hoes. And fast forward and hearing Keith Olbermann or seeing Keith Olbermann tweet, put it in writing. After Angel Reese made that gesture calling her an effing idiot. I don't know, gentlemen. It seems to me that while we can't make everything about race, we'd be idiots to think that nothing has race implications. And I'm wondering if this viewership had anything to do with it. We already talked about her being possibly one of the greatest players. So that had a lot to do with it. We already talked about her being Iowa and the rest of the team, Caitlin and the rest of her team, being the Goliath that, or being the David that defeated Goliath. But I got to think it's more. 9.9 million more than NBA games? I'll start with you on this one, ETP. Maybe I'm wrong, but 9.9, whereas last year we had 4.4. 9.9, put the graphic up one more time. When you think of the last time that a final that even came close, which still wasn't close, 7.4 million, 1995, was the two greatest coaches in college basketball facing off. That's Gino Auriemma and Pat Summitt. We got to go back there to just find a viewership that was still 2.5 million fewer eyes on the game. Last year was 4.9 million. And look, the trend line has been going up for the last 3 years. And this will be the fourth. Excuse me, the fifth year that it has gone up. So shout out to women's college basketball. But 9.9 million eyes. I hope I'm wrong. I don't feel like I am. I'll start with you on this one, ETP.
I mean, first of all, I think it's important to kind of clarify the trend. One, I mean, this is the first time women's college basketball has been marketed as March Madness. Two, if you look at the graph, except from 1996 till 2022, it was broadcast on ESPN, which is a cable network. So you just have a smaller amount of access based on subscription. So that's a limitation. Not to say that this didn't blow it out the water, but just putting it into context in terms of why the numbers or how the numbers might be so dramatically different.
Fair.
That being said, not even getting into the race side of it yet, I think when a player does something historic going into the Final Four, to get into the Final Four, when you're not a favorite to go to the Final Four and score a 40-point triple-double to get into the Final Four, that alone is going to raise some eyebrows at the same time where there's not a lot of big names on the men's side. No one seeds went to the, to the men's Final Four. So in terms of the focus, it just created a lot of momentum going into the Final Four, with South Carolina essentially being the hands down favorite to have an undefeated season. So those two, it was kind of a perfect storm. Race aside, you had this phenomenal historic individual player, and you had this historic run of a team that was basically taking the torch from the powerhouse and the perennial dynasty of UConn in South Carolina. So all of that together, I think, adds to it. I think the irony of it is, I think the race elements started the fuel, the fire of that got fueled after the fact. Just with the controversy around the trash talking and the difference in the media response of Caitlin Clark's gestures versus Angel Reese. And then I think it was just exacerbated. I mean, Joe Biden talked about inviting Iowa to the White House because of how great they played. And
I think it was Jill Biden, not Joe, the wife.
That's what sorry. I said Jill Biden. Maybe my accent messed it up,
bad.
But Jill Biden said that they had to walk that back. There's just been a lot of issues around kind of the media coverage of it, not so much the action. I mean, I think there's a lot of sexism in terms of the backlash on both sides. I mean, there's players that make careers off of trash talk. Dennis Rodman, who was, an amazing player, but known for his trash talk. Pat Beverly is in the league almost exclusively because of his trash talk in the NBA. Dylan Brooks, we only know his name because he talks trash to everybody. There's all types of competitive jawing in men's sports that happen in all sports, and the reaction to it all in the women's game is it's really ironic because you have to be competitive. You have to play at a high level. There has to be a lot of, conflict and tension in order for it to be exciting. But then as soon as it happens with the women, there's all this backlash, race aside. Caitlin Clark definitely didn't get that type of scrutiny because she wasn't, I don't know if it's because she's white. Obviously there's a bias there, but there was a little bit less of individualization where Angel Reese, I mean, LSU was drawing, rings with markers on their fingers up until they got to the, before they went to the Final Four. So they were they had a chip on their shoulder. They weren't highly recognized. Angel Reese was upset that Joe Biden didn't pick them to go to the Final Four and didn't want to go to the White House because of it. So there's just a lot that comes with it that I think it's great. That's why we're talking about it. Nobody's really talking about women's college basketball for any other reason than all of this controversy, which is good for the sport. I just think that it's rooted in a lot of sexism. There is some racism potentially involved. It's hard when you try to compare the two actions. I mean, Angel Reese was pointing out Caitlin Clark. That being said, even if Caitlin Clark had done nothing prior to that, the backlash that she got is just like, oh, she just talks a lot of trash. Like she's somebody that talks a lot of trash versus being like, what a fucking idiot, or being it, taking it to a level of cultural.
Classless was the word everyone was throwing around. Classless.
Not having class and all of these things where that's sports. They're like, sports make money because they're entertaining, and the storylines and the rivalries and all of that. Next year is going to be, if LSU and Iowa go back and all of their teams are in place, it's going to be 18 million. It'll be the highest rated ever because of all of this controversy. So for people to sit here and criticize it and be negative about it, this is what will make sports entertaining. There's a reason why other sports are actually able to be successful. It's not just watching, the personalities is what makes the game, when the game isn't always that exciting. And this game wasn't even that exciting. It was a blowout. It was a complete blowout.
I'll say this, because you're right. There's a lot of sexism here, but as the proud brother to three amazing sisters, I was able to witness growing up that when you combine sexism and racism, you look at all the quadrants, and the quadrant that got it the toughest, because they got to deal with sexism, but they're dealing with it while also dealing with racism, is Black women. There is a lot of sexism because Angel Reese's "you're too small" We laughed about it when Pat Beverly did it a week ago, 2 weeks ago, to LeBron James. People, just based on social media trends, really took issue with her saying, "You're too small." That was her go-to. And then they went bananas when she did the Cena and pointed at Caitlin Clark. So yes, there is sexism because sports, especially that sport, relies on a certain level of invincibility and bravado and trash talk. But I just don't want us to gloss over, and I'm not saying that you are. I say us as a community, a sports community, us as people that are charged with discussing these things. We can't brush over that there is a sort of an elevated component to this sexism because of race. I'll throw it to you, Big Flo Show.
You know, the reason why sports creates so much revenue, generates so much revenue, is because of emotions, right? People want to be moved emotionally. We have the mundane lifestyle of working and cooking and just doing your regular days, and you have a couple times a week.
You can't throw sex in there for me? I don't want to just cook.
Well, that's not mundane. I hope not.
Oh, all right, cool. All right,
That's
my
not
bad. All
Speak
right.
for yourself.
Yeah, shit. You know what I'm saying? Oh, that's just not
You're
mundane.
going to make me work. You're going to make me cook. Can I at least have some sex, please? All right,
Yeah,
cool.
you know what I'm saying? So
Office,
there's a few
movie.
times, you know, especially older, you get it, even fewer times that you're going to get to the at-home entertainment that you would like. But you know what I'm saying? So you don't get a chance to be moved emotionally very often. And when you do, people are going to gravitate towards it. So I would argue that the more polarizing the game is, the better it is, right? I didn't like we called Miami convicts, but Catholics for convicts makes that a huge game, you know. Anytime it's, you know, a black heavyweight versus a white heavyweight, historically it was a huge game. You know, Larry Bird versus the Magic Johnson, still the most watched basketball game ever. And you know, and I would say it's a great thing until it isn't. So when I say until it isn't is until people take things too far and they go too far. But even then, as long as it doesn't go that extra level, you know, the fact that Olbermann got caught, you know, with his pants down, because now we realize, listen, doofus, you try to act like you're this big, huge fan. Now you try to walk it back and claim that you don't watch basketball that much. Like, you are a sports dude. Shut up. You don't get to do that. You don't get to make these quick responses, but you call her an effing idiot. You get moved that. You were that mad that Iowa lost. You were that mad, realistically, let's say it. You're mad that the white team lost, that you can't even control yourself as a person who works in this industry and know that you can't jump. I'm not the biggest female basketball or, you know, women's basketball like fan, but I knew as soon as she did this that she was doing it back to Caitlin, because to be honest, when Caitlin first did it, her image has been this, you know, media created Puritan, you know, plays the game the right way, blah, blah, blah. And so when she did, I was like, oh, hell no, she talks a little shit. I was like, damn, I'm kind of surprised. But again, admittedly, I had only seen her play a few games. But when I saw her doing that, I'm like, oh, okay, she runs her mouth a little bit. But I was like, okay, be careful now. You know what I mean? You never know what's going to happen. So as soon as girls started doing it, you know, I argued with people on Facebook that were saying, well, there's a difference in how they did it. She did it in her face. And I said, argue the reason why Angel did it in her face. If Angel would have done that to her and Caitlin had not done that already, I'd have been like, all right, man, that's too much. I'm not a shit talker. I'm a hand the ball to the ref.
What? Hold on. You ain't gonna see it. You ain't know what?
No. I talk shit like whatever, but like I don't in competition. I'm not the kind of person that clowns. I've never been the kind of person that like gets in people's face.
Gotcha.
I've been never that type of person in competition. So yeah, I do talk a lot of shit otherwise besides that. But like when it comes to like just competition, I've just never been like that, even in high school, whatever. So my point is, but I understand that that's not that just because I don't do it doesn't mean that that's not part of the game. I understand why people do it. I understand why I even encourage my kids when I coach them to celebrate every good play, not to get in anyone's face, but to celebrate, because it eventually takes the spirit and makes the other team quit. So I think that there's room in that for gamesmanship, and how you choose to do it is how you choose to do it, as long as you're not touching people or getting ridiculous with the name calling and all kinds of stuff. But even then, they get ridiculous with the name calling. So my point was, Angel did it to the person who did it. And I thought that was better than doing it to the fans or doing it to the bench or doing whatever. I chose you to say this to, because you are the one who did this before, and I'm putting it in your face. I felt like that was better. They shouldn't all have to suffer for what she did.
And in the post-game interview, she said she really took issue with Caitlin waving off the girl from South Carolina like she can't shoot. Like, that's the universal. Anybody that's ever played pickup, when you do that, like, that's so disrespectful.
Yeah.
And I like that Angel Reese said this ain't just for me. It's for people that look like me.
And here's the argument that I had to people is I was like, and this is before I even found out I was right. I said, you are not going to find Caitlin saying one thing bad about it, because she knows she had it coming. When you are a trash talker, you're somebody who trash talks in the game, and someone shuts you up, game recognized game. So she was like, I'm not going to say nothing. I've been running my mouth this whole time. And everything that you see, I've coached sports for youth sports 9 years. I coach youth sports. And we'll watch a game. You're sitting right there on the sideline, and my son will come on and be like, yeah, Dad, they were talking. I'm like, they were? Yeah, they were talking big crap. Really? I didn't hear any of it. So if you could, whatever you pick up on TV, it's like a cockroach. If you see a cockroach, there's 20 of them things hiding that you didn't see. If there's some trash talking that you see on TV, there's much more trash talking that you didn't see and didn't hear. So Caitlin knew she wasn't right. She handled herself well. She's like, no one should get scrutiny. It is sexist that they're saying like people should act like that. There is some racism there. But if you peel back that top layer of fungus that's on top and go underneath it, there's nothing wrong with having two sports around. You know, my family's from Haiti. I got a lot of friends from Jamaica. When Haiti played Jamaican soccer, we get together and we run our mouths and we talk and everything is fun. You want the polarizing teams. You want it to be. They want the Super Bowl to be an East Coast team, West Coast team. You know, they want it to be LA versus New York. They want it to be two big areas that are going to be against each other. That's what makes sports worth millions and billions of dollars. So there's nothing wrong with it. Yes, people that didn't know, whether you're going to admit it or not, the white people were at home hoping the Iowa won, and the black people were at home mostly hoping the LSU won. And you know what? Whether you admit it or not, and that's the situation, so what? It's okay. As long as when you went back to work the next day, you treated people like good people, and like you stopped talking to your white friends. As long as you're white, you didn't stop talking to your black friends or whatever. It's not too far. We all want people. If somebody's from St. Thomas Aquinas, you want to see them do better. If somebody's from Boston, he wants to see them do better. If somebody's Haitian, I want to see them do better. Doesn't mean you hate anybody. That's what's the beauty of the competition or whatever in between sex and our mundane lives.
I agree with you. But black folk, we a lot more forgiving. There's a lot of black folk that wanted Caitlin Clark to win.
Probably.
I mean, because she is amazing. I don't think it was that rigid down race lines, and I hope that
maybe it wasn't, but I would say that
people that want LSU win too. But I get it, like the general premise.
I don't think a lot of white people want LSU to win because that was 9.5 people were occasional fans. There's probably about 2 million diehards in there. 7 million people didn't have nothing else to do on a Sunday that said, I want to check this out. So they're rooting to see what this superwoman could do. You're right. There probably are some people that just wanted to see Caitlin because she hadn't pissed nobody off. So they wanted to see her win. But if you're a white sports person and you haven't seen, although in basketball there probably hasn't been the same dividing lines as are in women's basketball as men's, because there's a lot of great white players as opposed to in men's basketball where it's been dominated mostly by black men. You know, when you see an opportunity, it goes back to the whole Joker thing about him being the MVP. You would like to see him be an MVP because you've been watching other people win it that don't look like you for so long. Human nature jumps in and you say, man, I want someone who looks like me to do something. So I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I don't think we should be so scared to talk about it.
I just want to point out also, so Caitlin Clark, one of the most disrespectful things that happened on the court was when Iowa was playing South Carolina and she waved off Raven Johnson, who played for South Carolina, to shoot, and just like, you know,
she didn't shoot though. She should have
pathetic, but she shot 50% from three. She was 3 for 6. So that trash talking, I mean, it was disrespectful because she left her on an island, and then that girl ended up actually delivering. She's 21% shooter over the course of the season, hit 50% of her shots when she was left all alone. But Caitlin Clark, I mean, that's the thing. There were all of these things that were happening, like you said. It's just this. You're getting the tip of the iceberg when you see it on TV and you see what's happening, but. You know, obviously Angel Reese, I mean, it's the national championship. It's a different dynamic, but trash talk is good for the game. They're not fighting. They're not, they're not doing anything extreme.
I just think, and I say that quadrant because all women college basketball players are dealing with the sexism that's inherent of it and how it's covered, because they should be able to talk trash and not be considered anything less than a basketball player. But then you add the component to race to it, and it sort of blows my mind. It's like we party at Notre Dame as football players, but there's another community of lacrosse players that party more. And yet every time we partied, it had this real dark cloud over it because we were having a good time. Whereas the lacrosse players, it was looked at as wholesome.
I was just a little rowdy.
It's just,
a little some tomfoolery.
For kids. Campus security is likely called when the football team is playing with a party. So let's leave on this, man, because I know you got to get out of here, Big Flow Show. Before you get out of here, I want to, because the name Brittney Griner came up. Before you get out of here, I want you to weigh in quickly. Brittney Griner came up, and her detention in Russia was a part of the conversation that pertained to Kim Mulkey. Think about this, because there is by far, it's not even close. All right, women's and men's Final Four players with most Instagram followers: Flau'jae Johnson, 879,000; Angel Reese, 533,000; Zia Cook, Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, Brianna Bill, and Alexis Morris. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all over 100,000. In the Final Four, the only male men's basketball player, came in at 7, and then the women dominate the whole top 15 list. I say all that to say this: Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, and so many other players are going to be making this decision about staying in college. And then you think about it in comparison to, I know you got to get out of here in like a minute or two. So comparison, Brittney Griner, she was only in Russia because she never made the NIL money. That could have been the nest egg to invest. That could have prevented her from needing to work in the offseason. That could have helped her overcome the low salaries of the WNBA. NIL, I'll give you last word on it before you get out of here. NIL and its impact on college women's sports.
Well, like I said, E and I joked about this week. We're bleeding edge because we've been talking about this for weeks, and it's just now starting to come out. People are starting to see the light. I think it's amazing that they can go out there and make their money. I said before, I thought NIL was going to have the largest impact on women, largely in part because there's not as many full scholarship sports for women as there are for men. There's a lot less to go do that. And I think women have been held back for so long in their ability to market themselves as entertainers, as beautiful women, as athletes, or whatever they wanted to go do. Look at the Twins at Miami and what they're doing down there. They don't even start, right? But they're $5 million each because they're attractive girls that can dance and dribble and synchronization, and they're fun, and they've been doing TikToks forever. Now they can cash in. And how dare anybody try to stop you from making money when you can? Because that's America. Capitalism is America. So I feel bad that it wasn't around when our era. There's a lot of different people that in our era that could have made some money. And I just think it's fantastic. Look at how these women are coming out, and maybe this will be the thing that will kind of catapult the WNBA. Maybe they'll carry this popularity into the WNBA. I don't quite see it right now, but I think that it's the thing. I mean, these followers, unless people just stop unfollowing them when they get to the WNBA, this might be the thing that's going to bring women up. So I think it's fantastic. So
fair.
Been a great week, y'all. Happy Easter. I'm sorry I got to go.
Happy Easter, gentlemen. Thank you both for your contributions this week, man. We'll go out to have the fellas get together and in this particular episode, bring to you some riveting content in an episode that was entitled Ladies First, content-wise, all about the ladies and their amazing outing when it comes to March Madness. And while, yes, it's the first time it was called March Madness, we've celebrated the likes of UConn and Tennessee and Stanford and other teams, and Baylor when they had their run. But this year was something different, and I'm happy to see it. In this episode of Ladies First, It's a week that you've got all of these things going on. The Masters with Tiger and a fist bump occurred during this week. Yet, sports conversations are about women's basketball. The NBA is straight up like must-see TV because every game is so important. In the West and the East, the play-in, and it's such a small margin of error between the teams. And yet the conversation is about women's basketball. You had the UFC and WWE combined for I think the enterprise value is $21 billion or something. Huge business. And yet the conversation this week is about women's basketball. So in this episode of Ladies First, we're celebrating that at least for this week, it seems as though the sexism, the bias towards men, the things that normally taint our real appreciation for women's sports were put to the side. We got to watch some good women's basketball. The racial conversations that we had related to it, as long as they don't trump the basketball, they're going to be things that we have to deal with. But I'm proud to say that the basketball took center stage in this Ladies First episode. Glad we got to celebrate it. We've done so several times on the Ball Hog Sports Talk. Glad we got to talk about Brittney Griner. Glad we got to talk about NIL and its impact on the college game. And been a great week. I know it's Good Friday. I know you all are planning to be with your families. Make sure that you enjoy. For those who celebrate Easter, happy Easter. For those who celebrate I think there are several religions that come together right in this particular time. Spring is now finally sprung. It's getting warmer. You get to be warmer, to be around family, to celebrate your faith. And for that, we wish you nothing but the greatest weekend imaginable. We thank you, as always, for tuning in. We ask you humbly, like we do always, please like, comment, share, tag a friend, tag a foe, tag anybody that you know. And please subscribe to the YouTube channel and the podcast. The Big Flow Show came to you today from the Middle Coast. You had ETP coming to you from the East Coast. And I am your boy, B Brown, ESQ, a.k.a. the Ball Hog, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, a.k.a. Mr. Excessive Celebration, a.k.a. Breezy. This has been the Ball Hog Sports Talk, where sports, business, and entertainment collide, where three businessmen get together and discuss sports in an entertaining fashion. And with that, we is out. Peace.